morning, everyone. What's up? It's been a minute. Today we're going to be talking about the supporter role, more specifically, supporter macro. Now, supporters are that class that is not appreciated enough for what it does, but is absolutely necessary for a good team composition. In my opinion, you can do without a speedster, you can do without an attacker, you can do without any of the carry roles as long as you build your team around it, but you cannot do without a supporter. So what does a supporter do? It's your mid-range, it's your front line, it's your back line in some cases. The goal of the supporter is to build up the carry Pokemon using sometimes healing, sometimes using CC or disruption, and ultimately putting your team in a position to win in a way that no other role does. And it often isn't appreciated enough for that because it is simultaneously the most rewarding and the most frustrating role to play in this game, especially in a solo queue environment. Now, I would go as far as to say that honestly, I feel like being a supporter is my favorite way to play this game because when it hits so good. But it's so difficult sometimes to be able to make sure that your team is making decisions that make it reasonable to even support what they're doing. And that's often where we end up at a crossroads where people don't want to really play support in a solo queue environment because it kind of just feels like you're handing the other team a win if you're not the one in the position to carry because you can't trust your teammates. But I'm gonna do my best in this video to walk through a game of a supporter and explain kind of the best ways to make macro decisions. But with the supporter role, a lot of times you're not going to be the one deciding the outcome of the match. You're not even the one that makes the decisions on where to go and group up. You're just there to help support your carries. So I'm going to do my best to explain that here in this video. We're going to be looking at a Blissey game, which is my favorite supporter. So here I am heading into the bottom path with a Ceruledge. You'll notice that I'm wearing the EXP share here. My Blissey build, since it got buffed, is Resonant Guard EXP share and Energy Amplifier because it allows me to play both Safeguard or Soft Boil depending on what the enemy team composition is. Now right here immediately you can see me start to move towards this contested farm over here because that's usually where you want to go first to try to take that out from under them, but it really depends when you're the supporter on what your lane partner wants to do. And my lane partner in this situation, the Ceruledge, has noticed that the enemy team, the Leafeon and the Trevenant here, have come in to start stacking. So the best thing that I can do is make sure that I do what the Ceruledge wants to do. Help them secure the farm on our side of the map so that the enemy team can't stack. There is so many different ways that this can go in the early game. My Ceruledge can go decide to stack, and I can decide to go with them. Or I can stand back and try to defend against the enemy team stacking. It really depends on the game, but generally what I try to do is if both members of the enemy team are moving towards my side of the map and my lane partner goes toward the enemy side of the map, I try to stay on my side to give my lane partner the opportunity to stack. But if just one member of the enemy team is coming over to my side to stack, sometimes I like to decide to go with my lane partner to double up on that enemy, give them more chance to secure experience, potentially stack, and just get them closer to their level breakpoint. In this case, I am trying to get my Ceruledge to level 5 as fast as possible, and right now the best way for me to do that is to stand with them, do what they want to do, and look for secures. We start chasing over here, I back off because Ceruledge has backed off. We are not going to be able to KO them, but we did successfully move them back to their side. Again, I really want to go up here for this experience because we can see now that the enemy team is hitting it. Ceruledge, I don't know what they're doing. They're heading backwards at this point, and I'm not really sure why they're doing that. So I'm gonna try to encourage them to come with me, which is why I pinged this farm. I'm not sure if they realized what the time was on the clock and like thought that one of the back ball toys was spawning soon or something, but I'm trying to get them to come over to this piece of experience because again, I want them to get that level 5. They did not get over here in time to get the experience from my experience share for that secure, but it does mean that I have gotten to level 4, and I chose Safeguard here in this situation. I mean, there's definitely an argument for running Soft Boiled always. I love healing, but with the Safeguard buffs and with the amount of CC that's going to be on the enemy team, I chose Safeguard. That's more of like a micro kind of decision of the build that you want to choose, but they have a Trevenant over there, they have an Aegislash on their side, so I went Safeguard in this situation, which is generally the more mechanically difficult move to use because you have to time it right, but it's still really fun. So now Ceruledge with 16 points is trying to fight them. Not a smart play, but we're able to try to get them out here. Luckily, Gengar showed up and we're able to take down Leafeon. That was not really anything having to do with me. I just made sure that I was able to get the Ceruledge out of that situation because I was able to give them the shield of that Safeguard, and we just got lucky enough to get the gank from the Gengar. The enemy team has also set their jungler down here. I'm trying to encourage the Ceruledge to back up. But now that the birds have spawned, you'll notice that I've kind of pivoted away from focusing on the Ceruledge, and I've pivoted towards focusing on this Gengar because the Ceruledge is not yet level 5. So the fact that there's a Darkrai here, the birds have spawned, Ceruledge is not really near us. They want to try to go get their level 5. It's now my job to make sure that I am with this Gengar so that they don't go down to this Darkrai because we don't want to lose that lead. So that's why, you see the Phantump walk in looking for a stack, and I just kind of let them. The reason for that is because, number one, I can't really defend against it, and number two, I want to make sure that this Gengar does not go down to Darkrai here. So I'm going to try to make sure that I can pocket them. Luckily, they're able to take down Darkrai here, and I'm just going to follow them and try to see what I can help this Gengar with. Able to grab a quick score. The scoring here from me is one of those decisions that, it really depends on the moment if scoring makes sense. I mean, I'm not stacking. It doesn't make a difference, really, if I score or not. But scoring can really keep pressure on the enemy side, especially when you have an advantage, because they have to make the quick decision to try to stop you or to go for one of your allies. Since I only had 12 points, it isn't distracting me for long enough to where they could capitalize on taking down my Gengar. So it was a good situation for me to go for a score there. But now my entire team is here. We are pushing onto their tier 1. Gengar gets another KO. Now Darkrai comes back, which is not expected, because at this point as a jungler, you'd kind of expect that they would go down, they would go back into their jungle, but they do come back here. So I back up a little bit. So let's go back here for a second. I score the 12 points. Ceruledge comes in. They're going for this Leafeon, who's still level 3. So it should be a pretty easy KO for them. I pop a Safeguard on them to make sure that they can stay in the fight. And now Darkrai comes back, which is now in a dangerous position. I don't know how much damage I'm going to take, so I back up a little bit and go through the tall grass to try to regroup, just to see if I'm going to end up catching the sleep of the Darkrai. Because if Ceruledge falls asleep, and I do, that's a much more dangerous situation. So I back up for a second to regroup, I do a little circle, and I come back in. I'm able to grab the Gengar and my Safeguard. Unfortunately, Ceruledge does go down, but my choice to go with the Safeguard on the Gengar here, I think, was the right call. Ceruledge just might have been too low to save them regardless. But now Gengar's level 7, so that's big. I'm going to help them get some experience here. And now we're in a perfect position to go for the 8-minute birds. As a supporter, the 8-minute birds are something that is really dependent on the state of the game. We had a situation where our jungler and their jungler did not make a second jungle rotation. So we can assume that at this point, their Darkrai has gone down twice. They are likely to be back in their jungle. We see 2 members of their team at least up in the top path, and we have been winning this bottom path pretty substantially. What I would hope here is that my Ceruledge stays in this area and keeps clearing out our farm. But right now, this is a perfect time for me to head into the central area with the Gengar. They're almost level 8. They can head right back into their jungle right after this. Ideally, both of your support core and your jungler to head into this area, but obviously it doesn't always go like that. You don't really want to abandon lanes at any time, but sometimes the game just calls for a lane to be abandoned. But generally, as a support, you want to head into this spawn. That being said, you can't always do that because if you have none of your carries coming into the central area, then you can't go. So just always be watching for where your carries are, basically. Darkrai does show up, so again, we can assume they have not yet gone back to their own jungle here. So this is honestly great for us because Gengar is now almost level 9, and I decide here, I've gotten my level 6, so I have my helping hand. I decide here to head to the bottom path. I maybe should, there's definitely a case in which I can follow the Gengar up here and look for this push that they are trying to make onto the top path. But I have 2 of my team members up here that hopefully are going to realize what this Gengar is doing and come meet them. But I have 2 of them now pushing into this bottom path. And this is a path that we have kind of already won. So I don't want to lose it now, and I just have Cerulege down there. So I decide to make it 3 in the top versus 2, and then I want to make it an even 2 versus 2 in the bottom, assuming their Darkrai has finally gone back to their jungle. So I do come down here. Cerulege is not yet 7, so they will get it off this, and luckily the enemy team has backed off. Looking at top right now, it looks like they're not doing too bad. Gengar was able to take down the sword and evolve, so honestly great up there, and my job is now just pocketing this Cerulege basically. I time the safeguard, just kind of micro there to make sure that the Leafeon can't really get too much done. And now we've gotten Cerulege to a really good spot. Darkrai has come back into this bottom path. Right there, that decision, this decision here, where Cerulege turns around noticing the Darkrai, smart play. My decision to go in, stand on the goal here, is to bait out their Dark Void, which is exactly what I do. They pop the Dark Void, so now that move is on cooldown, which if my Cerulege wanted to go in here, that is a great opportunity to do so. But they also totally don't have to. You don't know where the rest of their team is. The sword could be coming down into the bottom path. You know, you don't know what their decisions are going to look like. So Cerulege is waiting for a good opportunity here. So they're not going to go in just yet. They decide to go in now. But okay, I mean, they know my safeguard is about to be back up, so I unfortunately miss it there. But I am able to get that score in. If I didn't miss the safeguard there, Cerulege probably would have been fine. But I end up getting the score. I get out, and now we're kind of at a disadvantage in the bottom path because my team hasn't yet rotated down. It looks like all of them are. The way that I'm walking around here is kind of, I can't defend this goal, but I need to keep an eye on them so that they know I'm here. And the best thing I can hope for is a random secure on the Regice. So now I'm just kind of hoping to get vision on where the objective is at, so that maybe they won't hit it as fast and I can distract and wait for my Cerulege to come back. They're not coming back. They went to clear jungle, which is fine. They need their level 9. So, you know, me doing this right now, like, this is the best thing I can do is just wait for them. And unfortunately, if I went in when there's 2 of them down there, I probably wouldn't make it out. So at this point, you know, the best thing we can try to do is defend. I pop the Unite move on Cerulege. I'm just kind of, like, the way that you can play support sometimes, just kind of walking around them. Standing still as something like Blissey is just going to leave you very vulnerable. So if I just keep walking around, jump off the pad, then jump back on to get another shield, just waiting for my move cooldowns to come up and watching what my Cerulege is doing, that's kind of the best thing I can do in this situation. Luckily, Venusaur has arrived, so we are able to defend this here. Cerulege gets another KO. It's just now Darkrai down here. I decide to go ahead and just break so that the Darkrai would have to back up. It's, like, there's definitely an argument to where, you know, don't break there. The overcap is very low. But I didn't want my team to get in a situation where their entire team, like, we're trying to figure out what the best overcap is, and their team keeps sending people down, and we end up getting into a worse situation. So breaking in that situation just offers us the opportunity to push the Darkrai back so that they can no longer fight us, and then we can just kind of go back and start grabbing farm. Did I need to break it? No, probably not. But it did, in a solo queue environment, kind of what I needed it to do in that moment. At this point is where we kind of get into the mid game, where the support role is a little bit more difficult to define. Because as a support, your goal is to be with your carries, to power up your carries, and to set your carries up for success. I can't do that unless I am with them. So sometimes you end up abandoning a path, which is something I don't like doing, but generally leaving the off lane up to one of the carries is the best thing you can kind of do. At this point, my Gengar is pretty big, so I'm gonna go with them and just try to continue to power them up. And the Gengar was able to get a catch here as well, which is always something that's great. You notice the bottom path doesn't have anybody on it. The best thing is probably for the Ceruledge or the Venusaur to head down there. You know, the Ceruledge clears jungle, heads to bottom path to watch that goal zone, and I can always make it down there. Goodra's not in a good spot. There's no reason for them to be in the enemy central area, but if they're able to get something out of it, then, you know, it's totally fine. It's not like they're throwing or anything like that. But I'm not going to go in there because if the Goodra does end up going down, it's likely I go down too. You don't want to give them like a 2-for-1 situation. So I'm just going to be with this Gengar for now, helping them, you know, power up. I'm looking also for my Unite move back. Goodra is able to make it out. We find Leafeon, and we're going to try to capitalize on getting this Leafeon down. I end up going down here. They take down Goodra. Ends up not being great for us, but it's fine that we end up going down. I tried to help this Goodra get out here, but there was just never a good enough time for the Gengar to jump in, which is, you know, they weren't doing anything wrong. They made a smart play by not jumping in. Leafeon had a Unite move, and we weren't able to take them down. So that's kind of all that ends up being. Now at this point, this Venusaur at level 9 should not be anywhere near as far in as they are, and this is kind of where our team starts to fall apart a little bit. Gengar uses a Unite move and goes down there, ends up not being great, but I immediately head up into the top path to make sure that they don't continue pushing, because generally a team, you know, will continue to push if they get some KOs and they can start like looking to get some points in. Now, this is honestly, I'm gonna rewatch this because this is a great play. With Blissey specifically, this is more micro than macro, and I understand that, but like, look at this again. With Blissey, you're always looking for a line to get a really good Unite move off, and this is exactly what I see. So what I'm always looking for with a Blissey Unite move is, does my teammate that I want to Bliss Assistance also have a Unite move? Because if you can combine that, it is so devastating for the enemy team. So I see that I get the Safeguard on Ceruledge, and since I see them going in here, I already know that they are going to want to use the Revenant Rend. So I just pop it immediately. They see that I pop it on them, and they just go right in with their Unite move after, which ends up working out for us great. So, you know, I went down in that little push against Leafeon with the Goodra, but we didn't lose any of my core carries, so it ends up working out, and Ceruledge gets a huge boost off that Bliss Assistance. So we do secure the Regieleki. And now at this point, my goal is looking for vision. So let me just back up again really quick. We get Regieleki, it's pushing, there's an objective in the bottom path, so my instinct is I want the entire team to head to the bottom path, but I don't get to make that decision because I'm the support. So the next best thing I can do is look for vision. I see Leafeon, so I immediately throw the Safeguard on the Gengar in case they decide to go in. And now they are going to push in on us, so the best thing I can do is stand behind my teammates that are melee, standing in the middle of everybody, and just try to get them out. But they're throwing Unite moves all over us. They've got the Emerald 2-step. They've got the Phantom Forest from the Trevenant. They're throwing them all over the place on us. So, you know, maybe we get out, maybe we don't. Luckily, my team capitalizes on it. They make a couple great moves, and we're able to get out. But I kind of stand behind them there because at that point, I'm sort of trying to play from more range, like throw my safeguard on them from a little bit of a distance, because worst case scenario, they all go down. I can stand pat and try to distract and wait for them to be able to respawn. In this situation, my team goes down into the bottom path. They're able to secure the Regirock, but I notice that nobody is in the top path, and that is likely where a push would occur. So my instinct is immediately, I'm going to head top to, again, look for vision, because we see none of them. And lucky for me, I get there just in time. Kind of support goal is always be getting vision. If you don't know where the enemy team is, you gotta find them. And it's most likely, just from a macro standpoint, that they would want to try to push into this tier 1 to break it. So I immediately head up there, I find them, and now my team is going to know that they're around here. So Goodra's also going to come meet me up here. And I just kind of walk around through bushes, look for vision, make sure that they're not able to push onto this tier 1, because we don't want them to do that, obviously. Now at this point, we see Leafeon, Gengar gets them, so I just go right back top. You know, if that ended up being a huge fight where Gengar attracted everybody from the enemy team, like the Leafeon came in, and then if we also saw like the rest of their team start to migrate to where that Gengar is, I'd want to be there. But since Gengar got Leafeon and I don't see anybody else on the map, I'm going to make sure that I'm staying top, because that's the open goal zone, and continuing to look for vision. This is just me being annoying. I have a safeguard, so I can just kind of distract them, see where they are. This also gives the opportunity for Gengar to make a push into the bottom path. Do I like that push? No. I don't. But they got 20 points in. That's what they wanted to do. So I distracted enough of them top to where they couldn't go after the Gengar. Gengar still goes down. I don't like that my team is heading bottom, so I'm just going to wait top because that's where an objective is spawning. I can't really defend against this push onto tier 1 at this point, just based on my positioning, so I let them have that, and then I wait for my team to come back. At this point, you know, they're scoring, they're breaking top pad. It doesn't really do anything for them since we're so close to Ray already. And right now, I just have to wait and see what my team wants to do. We're not going to be able to take down Alecki, so watching where my team is headed, the thing that I need to do right now is make sure the enemy team's not getting Ray, and I try to get vision of the enemy team without going down. So my positioning right now is dependent on the fact that my team was not there yet. I didn't want to go for an aggressive position because my team was all looking for, you know, Unite moves or level 13s or their breakpoints or whatever over here. So if I'm up here in this tall grass and Delphox casts that fire spin at me and I get caught in it, even with a safeguard on, now they know where I am and I'm alone. So if they just decide to go in on me and catch me out, then that's really bad. So I stand back here instead, just in a little bit safer of a position to wait for my team to arrive. And now that Goodra does, I can kind of move in a little bit more. I don't like, I ping Gather here because I don't like where my Cerulege and my Gengar are positioned. I really don't think it's necessary to be up here because I don't think any of them are going to be going this way. I think that they're all likely right here. So I really wanted to encourage this Gengar to come here, and the Cerulege is down a little bit too far. And I don't know if they're trying to go for a flank or what, but I didn't necessarily like where they were positioned, so I wanted to try to encourage them to get a little closer to me. Now at this point, we're not in the pit because my team did not have good positioning. They saw that it's Goodra and me standing in there, and they didn't see anybody else. So they decide to go for a rip. Not a good play. Don't rip, but they made the call because none of us are there. So they go for a rip, they throw everything on Ray, and now my job is going to be, I'm going to try to secure. So I use the Unite move. Gengar ends up getting the secure there, so this ends up just being like we got lucky. But in that situation, I'm in a position where the enemy team is ripping. My team has not yet gotten into an optimal position, so the best I can do is look for a secure with my Unite move. So I do that. Luckily, we're able to get it, but this is one of those situations where, from a macro standpoint, why support can be both rewarding and devastating, because I had no control over the outcome of that game in that moment. I played a great Blissey game. I was, with my team. I was popping the safeguards, but I did not have control in that moment. It was just because my team was not properly positioned to take on a team fight. They were caught off guard by a rip, and it was just because of a lucky secure from this Gengar that we end up winning this game. So sometimes you can do everything right, not saying I did everything right, but you can do so many good things as a support and still just get in situations where you have no control over the outcome, and sometimes it just doesn't go your way. But we get Ray, and they surrender. They GG it. So here's the stat line. With a Safeguard Blissey, you are never going to expect to be doing a lot of anything, but the value of a Safeguard Blissey really just comes from the utility of it. It's not a tank, so you shouldn't be, tanking the way that this Goodra was tanking. It's not doing healing because I didn't have that move set, so I'm not expected to be doing a ton of healing, and it's not doing a lot of damage. It's for utility. So it's not always the most exciting stat line, but it is very rewarding when you can have a good game. So hopefully you learned something in this video about macroing as a support Pokemon. It's a very difficult role to play, and it doesn't always work out the way that you want it, but it's so much fun and very rewarding. There's a ton of different types of supports as well, and different ways that you play them, but hopefully this kind of helps you see the value of a utility supporter on your team with the Safeguard Blissey, and just generally how you should be positioning yourself and understanding how the map works. So let me know what you think, let me know what your favorite supporter is, and what I should focus on next, and I will see you all next time. Bye!